Speakcies.
Welcome to Origin of Speakcies, episode 133. I'm Steve. I'm here with my good friend Scott. Tonight's theme, fitness. We're going to look at two fitness-related idioms, fit as a fiddle and lick into shape. Appropriately, our special guest tonight is Stacia Patwell, comedian and fitness instructor. She calls herself America's favorite foul-mouthed trainer at her own virtual workout studio, School of Thot. Thot being spelled T-H-O-T. I first learned about Stacia on an episode of Joe Rogan when comedian Lara Bites discussed how Stacia helped her to get into shape during the pandemic. So we'll learn more about Stacia and her journey into fitness, and maybe see if she has any tips for us. Also, if you're a Speakcies supporter at patreon.com/Speakcies, remember to check out 3 silly questions where today's guest, Stacia Patwell, will answer, you guessed it, 3 silly questions, which leads us to today's topic, fitness. I'm going to review the origin and history of some fitness terms, fit as a fiddle, and lick into shape. But Scott, before we got going, I just wanted to share my excitement about our special guest. One of the things I am very intrigued by her is like on her Instagram page, Stacia Patwell at Instagram, she shows a lot of transformations of like when people go from one, the weight that they lose. And what's really great about what she does is there's no gimmick diet or, fad. You only eat bones or, you have carbohydrates, but only in a hot sun or anything like that. It's hard work and dedication and focus and getting things done.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that about her. That's fun to see and to think about, especially this time of year where it's, New Year's and everyone's trying to get into shape and drop habits or add good habits.
Yeah. And they look great. I do have to say, though, because just to bring a negative spin to it, but even though I appreciate, she's awesome, and you're right. It's not a gimmick. It works. I'm curious about how many people bail out on it, but that's something we can ask her. But
yeah,
you know what the worst is, though? I was thinking about this later because I'm always in a constant state of trying to lose weight, or thinking about trying to lose weight and talking about trying to lose weight. I'm really actually more in a state usually of gaining weight. But you know what the worst is when somebody loses a lot of weight and you see the before and after, and you're like, they look better fat. Now, granted, they're good. They're healthier. There's certainly there's no way they're not healthier. But I'd say 1 out of every 6 people loses weight, and you, honest to God, they looked better fat. So I haven't seen that yet with any of her before and afters, but I'm always looking for it because it makes me feel almost better about being fat because I'm like, well, what if I lose weight and I look worse like one of these people? Yeah. So
I like that. It's a good incentive not to lose weight. Of I'm comfortable with how I look now. I want to make sure that I don't get in a position that people tell me. Have you ever seen people do the whole, all right, you got to eat now? Tell people that? Yeah. When they get too thin? And I've probably done that before because there is that stage where people will lose a lot of weight and they do get that kind of gaunt, like Christian Bale, machinist, pardon me, thank you, sort of look, which is a good, I don't know, maybe that's more of a good problem to have than not.
And the other thing is you bring up a story that I know I've told you before. I don't know if I've shared it on the podcast, but a mutual friend of ours, I guess I won't name this person because of what the story I'm about to say, but
please,
is the opposite of me. I heard this on Joe Rogan the other day. He was talking about endomorphs and ectomorphs. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of them. I thought it was like a 90s cartoon, but please continue.
Yeah, it sounds like something from Ghostbusters, but if you look it up, endomorphs are just a different build of human. Basically, it's like stockier legs, kind of put on weight more. Ectomorphs are kind of the lanky, tall people. It's a DNA thing or it's a genetic thing. It has nothing to do with your diet. And I'm definitely an endomorph for sure. But anyway, our friend is a person that tries to put on weight. And you can probably know who I'm talking about. He's got 2% body fat. Yeah. Actually, in college, we did our body fat percentage, and I wasn't nearly as out of shape as I am now. And they did the calipers to measure your body fat. And I remember the guy that did it, of course, it's like the health guy, professor or whatever. He's runs marathons and stuff. And he told me straight up, he's like, you have the body fat percentage of a average woman. And then our friend had a body fat percentage of, I think, 4%. And he was like, you're in like the 99th percentile of body fat. Anyway, so he'd always be trying to put on weight. I'd be trying to take off weight. And one time I hadn't seen him in a while. I was like, dude, I said, you look like I will say it. I was in college, so this is very rude. But I said, you look like an AIDS victim. I said, you look like Pedro from the real world. And he got pissed. And he's like, what if I just told you how fat you are? And I was like, well, I've never seen you pissed before. And I realized that it's actually rude to say somebody looks like they came out of a concentration camp, which was the other thing I think I said. And it hadn't dawned on me before, because to me, that's a compliment. Like, if you told me you look like an AIDS victim, I would say I would literally say thank you. I've been working on my diet. So, the thing that I think we've talked about before that we have had to adopt is just never make a comment on physical appearance. And I think you took that one step further and said, we just shouldn't comment on anything. But here we are.
Which, ironically, we're still hosting a podcast together. But well, we'll put it to the test here, because we're going to talk to Stacia Patwell of School of Thot here in just a little bit. So before we talk to Stacia, we're going to talk about some idioms. And the first one we're going to do is fit as a fiddle. So, Scott, I'm sure this is one you've heard before. Is this something that you would say you use as in your quiver of idioms or phrases?
I'd say it's in the quiver. I'd say it's in the back of the, whatever the thing is that is called that holds quivers, that backpack thing. But it's in there. I've used it, but it's not like top 50. It has been on the list of ones that I've always thought would be a good one to do. I have no idea what it means, so I'm looking forward to this episode.
Well, guess what? You're about to find out. So, starting at Merriam-Webster. Merriam-Webster defines fit as a fiddle as an idiom, meaning in good physical condition, very healthy and strong. The example they give is, I feel as fit as a fiddle this morning. So I've never said that, but it sounds fun. Like, I would like to wake up one day and jump out of bed and say, I feel as fit as a fiddle. And then put on some overalls and maybe go plow a field or something like that.
Yeah, break into song. I feel like that's something you would do very shortly after saying, I feel fit as a fiddle this morning.
When we do the Speakcies musical episode, perhaps we'll make a song about fit as a fiddle.
I was thinking about Oklahoma, one of the few. I know you're a musicals guy, so I'm not going to. I'm sorry, we keep digressing. I want to go on with what you're saying. Have you seen Tick Tick Boom on Netflix yet?
I have not. Does that have anything to do with TikTok?
It does not. No, It has to do with musicals. I highly recommend it. It's really good. But yeah, we'll do a musical episode one of these days.
Very good. And I promise that musical episode will have nothing to do with TikTok. Can't even say it. All right. For Fit as a Fiddle, we're going to our friends at Phrase Finder. We're reading and quoting from them. Fiddle here is a colloquial name for violin. Fit didn't originally mean healthy and energetic in the sense it often is used nowadays to describe the inhabitants of gyms. When this phrase was coined, fit was used to mean suitable, seemly, in a way we might say now, fit for purpose.
Kind of like the British folks, right? Don't they still say, so-and-so looks fit? You heard that, right?
I have heard that. And you know what? We're going to learn about an English translation of a book here very shortly, starting right now. Where fit as a fiddle comes from. So the first use of this idiom comes to us from an English translation of a French book. The book in question is The Bachelor's Banquet, an English translation of a French book entitled The 15 Joys of Marriage. Comes to us in the year 1603, and here it is. Then comes down Mistress Nurse, as fine as a farthing fiddle, in her petticoat and kirtle. So 2 things to note. Kirtle is correct. Looks like girl spelled with a K. And we hear it here as fine as a farthing fiddle. Has not evolved to fit as a fiddle yet. And it also too means here kind of fit for purpose. So as we go on today, I'll also show us when fit as a fiddle came to mean healthy. But first I want to talk a little bit about where this quote came from. So as I mentioned, The Bachelor's Banquet is a translation, an English translation of a book called The 15 Joys of Marriage. I've been practicing all week trying to say the word 15 in French, and frankly, I can't do it. So I'm just going to tell you, it's The 15 Joys of Marriage is what the French version of this is. But The first use of fit as a fiddle comes to us by a gentleman by the name of Thomas Dekker. He's the translator who brought this into English.
Cool.
So you might be thinking, can we know more about Thomas Dekker? And yes, we will. So I did some research, and I found a book from 1916 entitled English Prose, Volume 1, 14th to 16th Century. And there's an introduction on Thomas Dekker by a gentleman by the name of George Saintsbury. Are you ready? I'm trying to build this up on purpose.
I could, if I was any more excited, we'd have to turn the camera off.
I like the sound of that. All right, so here's the introduction to Thomas Dekker. Nothing or next to nothing is known of Dekker's life. So, pretty big start. You got to give George Saintsbury credit for getting this assignment and then starting out that way.
Good job, George.
Really just to kind of ramp up the energy as you learn more about him.
I would rather he made something up. Just seriously.
And maybe he did, because there is a little bit of information on him that we'll get here.
Okay.
So what we pick up from George Saintsbury is not much is known about Dekker's life or his writings. He's most famous for his translation of The 15 Joys of Marriage, but his other best-known works are pamphlets.
Okay, pamphlet guy.
Yeah. So, Scott, there are few things I love more in life than lists and oddly titled books.
Yes.
So we have a list here. Pamphlets instead of books. But still, I think it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to sharing these with you.
Let's do it.
First one, The 7 Deadly Sins of London.
Ooh, I like that.
I think that's something I would pay attention if I saw that nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
News from Hell.
Wow. For these do sound like metal albums, don't they?
They do. And I didn't even think of that until I saw this third one.
Mm-hmm.
The Gull's Horn Book.
The Gull's Horn Book, like a seagull?
Yeah.
Gull's Horn Book.
And I think a horn book is isn't it something like a elementary school student would have used in the 16th century?
Maybe. I've never heard of a horn book. It sounds risque more so than anything else, but
it could be a new social media app.
Yeah. Hey, can I get your horn book? Mm-hmm. What's your horn book? Whatever.
I like the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm not done. Next.
Okay.
The 4 Birds of Noah's Ark.
Oh.
Kind of goes another way from, we sound like metal albums, and this sounds like maybe a...
I think it still could be a metal album, though, because metal bands do sometimes, flip the script and try to do, stuff about heaven. Or maybe it's a Stryper album. There you go. Still metal, but Stryper.
Yeah, I am a Stryper fan. I would be disappointed if they do something called The 4 Birds of Noah's Ark. But if anyone from Stryper's listening, just,
sorry,
take advice from some of your fans.
That was Scott, not Steve.
Thank you. Next, Lanthorn and Candlelight.
That's cool. That's my favorite one, for sure.
Okay.
I don't know what Lanthorn is, but it sounds like the ballad that would be on the metal album. You know what I mean?
I could see that. I definitely could see that. I also think it could be like a lady detective show on CBS, like with Lonnie Anderson and Annie Potts or something like that.
Right. It comes on after Jake and the Fat Man.
Yeah. Annie Potts, by the way, shout out to her.
Yeah.
Very underrated, attractive lady.
Yes. And Delta Burke got all the pub, but Annie Potts was the real hero. Actually, young Delta Burke is A-okay as well in my book. But
everybody wins with both of those. But get a chance, check out Corvette Summer with Mark Hamill and Annie Potts. You'll know what I'm talking about there.
And if you get a chance, check out her, I want to say, were they Orville Redenbacher commercials? She did a string of commercials right in her prime, and I believe they were popcorn commercials. I could be wrong, but I remember Annie Potts doing some commercials where she was just looking, chef's kiss. Amazing.
I like that. I like the use of chef's kiss too.
Yes.
So we've kind of gone away from metal, but we're going to get more metal here as we finish up.
Annie Potts and heavy metal.
Yeah.
It's my memoir.
I would buy that on barnesandnoble.com. I wouldn't even go to Amazon for it. I'd pay the extra $10.
Yeah. Hey, do we have more titles? Because these are awesome.
We got 3 more.
Yes.
We're finishing strong. All right. The Dead Term.
Ooh, that sounds like a Stephen King book that you never read, but you heard it was good.
Work for Armorers.
Okay.
And this is my favorite.
Okay, I'm ready.
Going out strong. The Raven's Almanac.
That's good. Yeah, that is good. It does sound like a euphemism for something, right? That like does. Ron Burgundy would say, like talk about.
What I like about that is I could sit around and just postulate on what the Raven's Almanac could be. Like, I think whatever was written down wasn't as good as whatever you could think up that could be in something called the Raven's Almanac. But that's just me.
We could do a whole. I'll be honest with you. I'd be happy to do. I'm having a lot of fun. I'd be happy to do a full episode where you just read titles of things and we said whatever the first thing was that came to our minds, because this is fun.
It sounds like we're always looking for new ideas. You might have had a great one there.
There you go.
So for anyone who's still listening, Thomas Dekker, we don't know too much about him. But something we do know a lot about is the book that he translated. So the book that he translated in English is called The 15 Joys of Marriage. Let me tell you a little bit about this book. Wikipedia describes it as an anonymous late 14th or early 15th century French satire in prose which presents a picture full of sharpness and humor of the woes and deceits which afflict the married state. The misogynist satire is allied to the pitiless analysis of the blindness of husbands in everyday concrete situations. So when I hear the word misogynist nowadays, I kind of put my BS meter on, because I think that's a term that gets thrown around a whole lot. Yes. We live in an age where everyone that disagrees with you is Hitler. So I feel like misogynist is a term that still should be reserved for something very, very hateful towards women and not just flung out there randomly or used. You know, it's not a Raven's Almanac. It's not just something you want to put out there and have people ponder. When you say misogynist, you need to have some concrete proof that something is that hateful. I agree.
So like if he was to say something like, because you said this is a what's the word for it?
Satire.
A satire. Mm-hmm. So he's not really talking about the real joys of marriage, but it's misogynist. So he's like saying things like, when I married my wife, she was fit as a fiddle. Mm-hmm. Now, when she lays around the house, she really lays around the house, if you know what I mean. You know, stuff like that, like, but with a French accent.
Yeah. That's from the Rodney Dangerfield translation of 15 Joys of Marriage. So I thought it would be good that we look at the first joy that's listed in this book, so we can discuss it and see if it truly is misogynist. So, reading from the English translation. The first joy of marriage is when the young man is in his first youth, when he is fresh, nimble, and merry, and cares for nothing except making love, composing ballads and singing them, looking at the most beautiful women, and considering where he may take his pleasure and find his delight. So life sounds pretty good for this young man.
Absolutely.
So the book goes on to describe a trap that the young man sees. That all his friends are getting into, and that trap is marriage. So this is how they describe what happens when the man's in the trap. Now the poor man is in the trap, he who formerly had no care except to sing and to buy points, silk purses, and similar ornaments to give to young women. He takes his pleasure and delight for a while, and has no thought of escape until he has pondered a little, but by then it is too late. So not painting a really good picture of marriage, I would say. But again, misogynist, I don't know.
I 3 words, spot the lie. No, I'm just joking. Yeah. I wouldn't call it misogynist. It's a freaking satire, man. Come on.
But we're not done.
Uh-oh.
So shortly we're provided a conversation between the young man and his wife. I'm going to start with the wife. My dear, please leave me alone, for I am very upset. My Chuck, says he. What's the matter? Certainly, says she. I have good reason, but I can't say anything about it to you, since you never listen to me. My sweet Chuck, says he, why do you say such things to me? By Our Lady, sir, says she, why should I tell you? For it's a thing you wouldn't consider important if I did tell you, and you would think I had some other motive. Truly, says he, you must tell me.
This is a Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore bit. That's what it sounds like to me. I remember
be.
specifically that whole thing. He'd be like, "Why are you mad? Why you wouldn't know if I told you? If I have to tell you, forget it or whatever."
So why do you think the wife's upset? Do you have any? Because you're about to find out.
Who cares? Oh, sorry. No, I can't wait to find out.
Okay.
I thought the whole point was that she wasn't going to tell him.
Oh, no. We're going to find out. So I'll give you the answer. She was at a party and other ladies had better clothing than her.
This tracks. I'm sorry. This was 500 years ago, but this tracks.
I'm not done. So I'm going to finish up here on the first joy of marriage. So the young man tells her that money's tight. He's doing the best he can, which I think is a reasonable answer. I think it's an answer we've given in our lives. Wouldn't have, not discussions exactly like this, but maybe similar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For sure.
So then she turns her way onto her other side and says, "In God's name, leave me alone, for I will never mention it again." "My lord," says a good man, "you are getting angry with me for nothing." "Not so, sir," says she, "for if you have nothing or very little, it is not my fault." So, okay. I wouldn't call the book misogynist, but since I like to have joy in my marriage, I'm not going to comment any more on this book.
Yeah, or the I'm not married and have zero prospects, so I can say anything I want.
Yeah. So to shift to another topic, when did fit as a fiddle come to mean extremely healthy? So I don't have an exact date or kind of smoking gun, but I did find a date where this was used kind of in common vernacular. So according to Green's Dictionary of Slang, they quote a book called The Great Adventure. Now, this book was published in 1988, but it takes letters from the First World War of New Zealand soldiers. So it takes their letters and their correspondence. And in a letter from 1915, a soldier writes, "I will be out of bed in a day or two and am feeling as fit as a fiddle." So this is not the first quote, but the first time it's like quoted, but we know that by 1915 that this was in the common vernacular and being used.
Okay.
So
1915. Fit
as a fiddle begins to mean fit for purpose, comes to us in 1603 from an English translation of a potentially misogynist book called The 15 Joys of Marriage. And we know by 1915 it was used to mean healthy and fit.
Okay. Cool. Well, I like fit as a fiddle. It's good. Why a fiddle? Why do we think of fiddle?
I think it alliterates.
Okay.
And it's kind of fun to say. And it gives visions of people using a fiddle, which is always good. No one has a bad time. You never get bad news and have someone pull out a fiddle.
That's right.
And start a square dance. Or maybe people should start doing that.
Well, I like how the guy, I don't remember where this came from, but like there was a quote where a guy got out of bed in the morning and just said, "I feel fit as a fiddle," or whatever. I will say recently I've started to understand that there is something to speaking positive things and just, there's the old Stuart Smalley thing of, him looking in a mirror saying, "I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me." And so recently I've been like trying to pump myself up, say things. And then I had this moment where I thought, you know what? I don't think anyone under the age of 40 has ever done this. This is something old people do. Like once you hit your 40s and you start going, "Oh, why is my life where it is right now?" You go, you got to give yourself some positive reinforcement because there's nobody else there to do it.
So before we get to Stacia, I have one more idiom I wanted to do. Lick into shape. So I want to do this for a few reasons. One, it sounds a little bit dirty, and that's always a good reason to get started with something. But two, once you hear the origin, it'll give me a chance to talk about my love and all the time and thought I put into animals, which is something we haven't had a chance to talk about in a long time. So back to our friends at Phrase Finder. Lick into shape, to transform a faulty object or venture into something that works effectively. So you hear this, we talk about getting into shape a whole lot, not necessarily lick into shape, but there's a reason that lick into shape was used in the past. And it wasn't from like a 1950s Leave It to Beaver fist fight sort of thing. Like, I'm going to lick you, anything like that.
Right.
Nor is it something, unfortunately, not very dirty or sexual.
Right.
But it comes from the medieval belief that when bears gave birth, that they licked their cubs into shape.
That's good. Okay.
So longtime listeners know that I use bears to personify every fear and worry that I have in the world. I put it into one giant eating, killing machine. Bears are terrifying. They're God's vengeance on us. They occasionally do some good things. Everyone knows the family comedy Grizzly Man, which is one of my favorite movies to watch at home with the wife and kid. But bears also are fearsome. Some people say I have a fear of bears. I say it's more of a healthy respect. That's why I live my life loaded for bear, which is my favorite personal idiom. And speaking of which, if you'd like a t-shirt that said loaded for bear, or maybe cut of your jib, like Scott's favorite idiom, go to speakcies.com/store, where you can see our TeePublic powered store with lots of t-shirts, masks. I think you can get stickers. You can get wall art. If you're really into bears and you want to have that come up, you can do that too.
Do it.
So back to bears being licked into shape.
Yeah.
So this actually, one of the first uses of this comes from one of the first books that was actually literally printed. So we know Gutenberg's printing press came into being around 1440. There is a quote regarding this from the year 1480 from a book entitled The Pilgrimage of the Soul. I'm going to read from you. I'm going to read actually the translation. Bears are born misshapen and are subsequently formed into their natural shape by the licking of their father and mother. And the reason I read the translation is as printing just started, spell check certainly had not been invented. And the way all these words are spelled, transformed has several Y's. Y's are just everywhere in this, including in the word kindly. And E seem to be missing, including the word shape is missing an E. So just kind of a hot mess of printing. But again, the printing press had already been around 40 years at this point.
Yeah, you cut them a little slack, I guess.
Cut them a little bit of slack.
So was the idea here, we say lick into shape, that the bear just came out as just a mass of fur, or some weird shape, shape-shifting mass of fur, and then the parents had to lick it and essentially created the bear shape out of it.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because probably probably wise, because nobody was doing the Timothy Treadwell thing and like living with. Everybody had a healthy respect of bears and was staying away, and was so far away that all they saw was this blob of bear.
Well, that's a good point too, of things being far away. We take for granted that, if we wanted to, theoretically, we could go get on an airplane and fly across the world tonight if we wanted to.
Yeah.
People
we can look online.
In the 15th century, they're not going anywhere.
No. And all their knowledge came from some old grandfather or uncle that saw something or heard something from, ye old peddler down the street or something. So you can't blame them too much. Like, we can laugh, what idiots. Hey, listen, if I didn't have TV and the internet, I wouldn't even know there was such thing as bears. So you cut them a little bit of slack, I guess, but it's still kind of a wild idea.
It's a wild idea. So speaking of wild ideas, let's run some past our special guest, Stacia Patwell of the School of Thot now. Our guest is a comedian, fitness instructor, and certified personal trainer. What started with her leading Zoom workouts for a few fellow female comedians during the lockdown grew into a movement in the birth of her own virtual workout studio, the School of Thot. She's America's favorite foul-mouthed trainer, and our special guest today, Stacia Patwell. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
So tell us about the events of March 2020 that led to the birth of School of Thot.
Okay. So right before the pandemic started, I was training people in a gym during the day and then doing stand-up at night. And then quarantine happened, and I weirdly got back together with my boyfriend like the night before quarantine started. So I'm just like holed up with my like ex/whatever boyfriend.
The night before?
Yeah. We'd been broken up for 3 months, and then we like when it wanted to talk, you know,
No.
and over. And then the next day they were like, you're done, you know, and we were kind of like, okay.
Yeah, the apocalypse is starting and you guys are doing it together. Yeah.
Yeah. It actually worked out really well. But so, you know, all the gyms closed. And I was talking to a couple girlfriends on the phone, Nicole Amy Schreiber and Laura Bites. And, you know, we were just kind of they're like, oh, like we need to work out, or like we feel gross, you know. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should like lead us through like some squats or something, but like maybe not. And then I had another guy. I used to teach spinning for years back in the day, and I had like a little cult following, and I had one of the girls who used to take my spin class, and she was like, you should teach it like a Zoom class. And I was like, that is literally the lamest thing I've ever heard. Like, I would never do that, but like, that's really sweet that you're saying that to me. But like, yeah, no, you know? And then I was talking to Laura Nicole, and this girl had just said that to me. And I was like, all right, why don't I just like, we'll just do it on Zoom. I'm sure it'll be like super lame, but I'll just take us through a couple moves just so, because then I was worried, like, I'm going to start gaining weight. Like, what am I going to do? You know? Mm-hmm. So, and then I opened my mouth and I invited like a few other comedian friends, just women. I just opened up to women and gay men at first. And like 25 people came the first day, and it ended up being super fun. And everyone's like, do it again. And I was like, all right, fuck it. So I started teaching that class every day. And it was donation only. So, you know, sometimes I made $0. Sometimes I made a couple hundred, depending on how many people came. But it started really just so I didn't feel gross. And then as it grew and grew, I was like, oh, this isn't about my workout this isn't my workout anymore. Like, I'm like fully teaching all of a sudden, you know? And it just became a really good outlet for me too, because I hadn't been on stage, and it sort of just like turned into like an outlet for me to talk shit, you know, while like lunging, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's sort of why it got so popular, is because, you know, most fitness instructors you watch classes with, they're like so saccharine and like, you know, it's just like so not relatable. I mean, whatever, everyone has their own thing, but even like the Peloton thing, you're just like, Jesus Christ, like shut the fuck up, you know, like, yeah, there's no way you're this happy about doing that. Like, I taught spin for years. Like, I'm just a lot more, I don't know, I guess I'm a lot more honest, you know, and I guess my whole kind of motto turned into like, you don't have to like it. And so many people, I think, talk themselves out of getting fit because they're like, well, I fucking hate exercise. Like, I can't do it. So this is how I am. I'm just going to be overweight. And it's like, no, you lose like all those people because they can't relate to like, I love like waking up. It's like, I don't fucking like, I wish I could be eating pizza next to a pool all day. Like, I don't like it either, you know, but it doesn't matter if you don't like it. You just have to fucking do it. Mm-hmm. So I think that was really relatable for like all of my students at first, who really were just my friends from like the Comedy Store and like the comedy scene in LA. And then it just kind of expanded to like other comedians in New York. And then it started to be like not comedians, and it just kind of grew organically. But I really wasn't like charging or making a living at it for, you know, maybe a year and a half. Mm-hmm. Then I was like,
but see, that's cool though. You sort of proved the concept, like, and it sounds like you almost had to be talked into it, you know, which I think is a good sign, right? Like, it's one thing if you come up with the plan first and say, my livelihood's going to be doing these Zoom things, but it just sort of happened. I also like, by the way, that you said, I was watching, by the way, your Instagram is amazing. So anybody that, everybody should follow Stasia's Instagram. It's just at Stasia Patwell, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's, it's spelled weird, but
we'll have it linked up.
Yeah, we'll link it. But I like that you said too, like, it's okay to have hurt feelings, which it's almost weird to hear somebody say that. I don't know what that says about our culture right now, but like, I was almost like, oh wow, she just said that. But it's true. Like I guess, do you find that the people in the class do you ever have anybody that's sort of offended and just kind of bails out? Because they're like, I don't want to have my feelings hurt.
I do. I mean, I like the girls who come to my live class. I have like a pretty tight core of girls who come all the time. But, I have my Patreon, which you can kind of join for $20 and take classes. And, I have people quit it every month. People drop every month. It's still growing, but I lose a bunch of people every month. And obviously that's for any number of reasons. When it comes to like fitness, you like sign up and you're like, I can't fucking do it, whatever, So I really try to not take it personally. At first I would take it really personally. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm fully not for everyone. Like, and I am the first to admit it, like some people cannot handle, like, even the fact that I was on Joe Rogan is like offensive to them.
Right.
And I'm like, fucking find somebody else, dude. Like, go, like, literally had a DM from a stranger be like, I'm really interested in signing up with you, but I'm really concerned that you're bragging about being shouted out on Joe Rogan in your Instagram bio. So I just want to make sure that you don't like him and that you're not a Republican. And I was like, I didn't respond because I had such a huge amount of rage boiling in me over that. It's like, you should not give a fuck what your trainer thinks about anything aside from your fucking form in a squat. Like, why do you care? Like, what if I do like him? Wow. Like, who gives of course I like him. This man like gave me a huge fucking platform. If I didn't like him, I wouldn't put him in my Instagram bio. 1, 2, really, you care like who I voted for? Like, how is that any of your business at all? It's like so bizarre to me. And so people like that, like, don't come to me, because not because of who I voted for or anything like that, but because your whole philosophy about like, I need to make sure I like everything about you before, it's like, you're a victim. And I'm like, you're not going to change, because you just need to make everything in your life so padded so that you like everything and you never have an uncomfortable feeling ever. And guess what? You're going to stay overweight. You're going to stay unhappy in like everything you're unhappy about, because you're scared of being uncomfortable. And it's like, I'm over. It's so boring now. It's just so boring. Like, people are so afraid of getting their feelings hurt about everything. And it's like, the greatest things that have ever happened to me happened because I had my feelings hurt. Like, you're supposed to have your feelings hurt. That's how you evolve and like realize what is for you and what isn't for you. Like, even just going out to dinner, and I used to wait tables for 21 years. And people would like have sips of like samples of like 4 different wines before they could choose a wine, because they just had to love. It's like, it's okay to not fucking love the glass of wine you ordered. You know what I mean? It's okay to eat something and be like, it wasn't my favorite. You don't have to fucking send it back. And like, it's just like, fucking stop,
And then go write a review on what's that website that Yelp. Go to Yelp and write a review.
It's just very like a very entitled way to live. And I mean, I'm from Boston, so I can't help but be straightforward. And I actually think the kindest thing you can do to someone is to be completely honest. Absolutely. Like, how is my coddling you or making sure I don't hurt your feelings? How does that help you? Yeah. If you're hiring me to help you change your life, then, my telling you that like, oh no, you can absolutely be healthy when you're 350 pounds. It's like, that's fucking bullshit. And like, I'm not doing my job,
Yep.
I am interested the next time I go to Dunkin' Donuts. I'm going to see, before they hand me my coffee, if I can get some background of their podcast likes and also who they voted for the last few elections, to see how that goes over. See if I get a special donut after that.
It's really crazy. Like, I was baffled when I saw that. Like, and I screenshotted it. I sent to Laura Bites, and I was like, show Joe Rogan this because this is like hilarious. Like, I don't know if she ever
I
did.
did. There's some weird backlash against Joe Rogan that I don't quite understand. I really don't. I had put the thing, you know, at the end of the year Spotify thing, which I know nobody cares about, but I'd do it anyway. Top podcasts, and Joe Rogan was number one. And I had this person that I had dated direct messaged me and was like, you actually put you're proud of that you listen to Joe Rogan? And I was like, yeah, I like Joe Rogan. Be gone.
Well, I find that people who insult Joe Rogan have never actually listened to a full episode.
Right.
And also are doing to him what they don't want people to do to them. Like they're judging him for being some like idiot meathead.
Right.
Like, and that's actually not what he's like. And if you listened to any of his podcasts all the way through, you would know that. Like, just look at the people he's interviewing. He interviews both sides. Like, he can talk more about any issue than anyone I've ever talked to in real life. And so it's like, okay, so you're judging this guy because he was a host of Fear Factor and he looks like a meathead. And like, that's what you don't want those people to do to you. And you're actually the one doing it. So it's like, I don't know. I get mad when people say that because I think Joe Rogan is a really smart guy. And I think he's really open-minded and he cares a lot about helping comedians who are, you know, not as successful as he is. And that's a really huge thing. You know, like a lot of people who are successful don't give a shit about helping people who are lower than, you know, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he seems very, I don't know. The word that came to mind was pure in that. Like, it seems like he really does care and he really does want to give a platform to people he likes. And that's freaking awesome.
And but also, who gives a fuck if I like Joe Rogan or not?
Well, right. That's the whole point. It's ridiculous. You know? It's like on, I haven't been on a dating app in a little while, but when I was, it was like half of the females on there are like, swipe left if you know, it's like this whole litmus test. If you voted for Trump, if you this, you that, and whether or not I voted for Trump, I'm like, well, I don't want to match with you if you're the type of person that doesn't even want to talk to somebody who voted a certain way. Like, or the fact that like I went to Liberty University, which is a Baptist college. People would see that and go, oh, I swiped on you, but then I saw you went to Liberty. I'm not interested. And I'm like, wow, okay. Be gone again.
It's like, what a boring life you must lead.
Oh my gosh.
You only speak to people who think exactly the way you do. And it's funny because like the whole ideology around being a liberal is to allow people to think and believe whatever the fuck they want because this country was founded on free speech. That's why they fucking left England, because they couldn't believe what they wanted to believe. You know, and now it's like, it seems like that is the group of people that is becoming even more judgmental about people. And it's like, I truly don't give a fuck what my friend believes in, even if it is the exact opposite of me. I don't care. It's not like, I am not defined by my beliefs. Like, that is not who you are as a human being. It's like the top layer. And if you're just like cutting people off because of that, that's, I don't know, to me, that's just so like spiritually, shallow, spiritually shallow. It's just a sad way to live. And, you know, obviously today, you know, these days it's like,
there's this new dogma. There's like, these are the new Puritans. It's really weird. It's been a complete flip in a lot of ways, but
and for anyone who's matched with Scott on a dating app, to be clear, he voted for Kanye West. I want everyone to know that.
Dude, don't put my stuff out there like that. I don't like to talk about my vaccination status or who I voted for. Sorry. That's private.
Well, you know what? It's nobody's fucking business.
That's right. It's nobody's business that I voted for Kanye.
Multiple times.
That's right. Absentee and in person.
Yeah.
So we do a show about words and phrases, and on the episode that your interview is going to be in, we did "fit as a fiddle" and "lick into shape." But you have a phrase on your website that I really like: "ass first." Could you explain what that means and how that applies to your fitness philosophy?
It wasn't really meant to be like a phrase. First of all, just so you know, my website's a disaster. It's about to be very updated. But I guess it just has to do with my like workout philosophy. All my workouts are really full body workouts, but there's like a lot of emphasis on the glutes, on the ass. It's the biggest, most important muscle group in the body, and for function and for looks. And, you know, I guess it's so all of my workouts are full body, but like a large emphasis on the ass.
Oh, so you start at the ass and then work outward from there.
You start the ass and everything else just falls in line.
Oh, okay. I've
Yeah.
been doing it wrong. That's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just for women, you know, like women love men with great asses, you know, like back in caveman times, the people who survived were the people who could run the fastest, jump the highest, throw shit. And those people will probably have really nice, strong, big glutes, you know? And so that's probably why, like on a cellular level, we're attracted to that. And it's really training your glutes is really a good way also to help prevent you from having knee injuries or hip injuries, or lower back injuries. So it's the hub. It's the hub.
I like that.
I think it's good. And I think there's a t-shirt in there I'll volunteer Scott to wear if you get an ask for a shirt.
Absolutely.
So when you're meeting with clients and helping them start a new approach to fitness, what are some things typical obstacles that you see with new clients, and what do you do to help them overcome?
I think usually the biggest obstacles are mental. Are feeling like because you've never been in the body you wanted to be in, that's not possible for you, that there's something terminally unique about your body, that it won't be affected by biology and physics and chemistry, and that's for every other body on the planet, but not for mine. I find that sort of seems to be like the number one thing. And I'll say that to people sometimes, you know, and it seems to really strike a chord, because if you feel like you've been like hitting your head against a brick wall and you've never been able to achieve what you want to achieve, then if you are only going to believe something if you see it first, then it's going to be really hard to trust that, you know, that this program could work for you, right? So a lot of it is like the mental shift of believing something first, and then you see it, you know? And I'm not reinventing the wheel either. Like the reason my program is so great is because of the accountability. You know, it's like, guess what? Like you could Google any of the shit I do. It's like, we all know, like, okay, eating right, macros, drinking water, steps, doing workouts. Like this is not like news to anybody. But what makes my program different is we have accountability text groups. So there's like 5 or 6 women in each text group with me, and then with like a leader who's already done the program before. And every single night you send in your food diary and your steps every single night, even if it looks like shit, even if it sucks, every day for 8 weeks. And that seems to be it's what would make my program really hard to scale up, because there is so much like one-on-one contact.
Right.
But 2, it's what makes it work, because any diet and fitness program will work if you do it. The problem is doing it, you know, because you could do it every day for 3 weeks and be like, I don't fucking get it. Like, where's my modeling contract? I've been doing this shit every day for 3 weeks. Where the fuck, like, why am I not a model yet? What is happening? You know? And so then you fucking give up. You're like, fuck it. But it's like, you can't see grass growing, but it's growing. It takes longer than 3 weeks. But when you don't have that sort of support, it's easy to just be like, fuck it. You just go to the fuck it's. And then it's like, you know, you don't think about it for another 6 months. You just sit around hating your body because you feel like yours is broken, but it's not broken. It's just that it takes more time, you know? And so I think my program, because of the text group sort of, I'm sober and I was in AA for a long time. And I didn't mean for it to kind of be like AA, but it has grown into that. It's like this, it really is a community, which is sort of bananas considering it's all virtual, you know? So, but you know, a lot of these women have made like real friendship, because we pair people up, like, depending on where they live and their age and yada yada. So a lot of these women have actually met in real life, like after the program. So it's cool. It's really cool to feel like I'm building an actual community of women.
I was going to say, that's got to feel really good, that
It does.
people that are coming together, and and that's the thing you said. Well, it can only scale up so much because there's so much one-on-one contact with you, but as the community grows, there are going to be other probably leaders in your community that can play that role to an extent. I mean, there's only one you, but it'll be interesting to see how it develops. It seems very, very positive. And I do like too how, again, I just from seeing the social media, how you really interact with I don't know if you just your followers, I guess I would say, like on social media, and that's pretty cool to see as well. Now, I did want to ask you this. I don't know if you can, how much you can talk about it or not, but I was looking at your Instagram tonight, and can you talk at all about your upcoming podcast, or is that still under wraps?
It's not like a secret. I'm just in the process of figuring out the logistics of it, but it is going to be like a School of Thought podcast. And I don't really have much to say about it yet, but it is coming, and I've had a lot of positive feedback about doing it. So I'm excited to do it. I'm looking for a producer right now. So if you know of anybody in LA who wants to come be my audio engineer, let me know.
Yeah.
But I have so many cool women. It's not just going to be like me and women. It'll be a lot of people, but I have so many just really cool people in my life because of the program. Like, so, just the comedians alone, just having them on and talking about really anything. So
I remember, the comedian thing is so cool. Steve, I remember Steve texting me, or maybe we were on the phone, and you were like, hey, have you seen the Joe Rogan with, I actually forgot her name. Who's the comedian?
Lara.
Yeah. And he's like, you should, like, cause his episodes are so long, you kind of get some of, you don't always listen to everyone. He's like, you should listen to that. It was really interesting. And I listened to it. I was like, wow, that's really inspiring. And I think that's obviously, like with a lot of people, what turned us onto you, but but it's a great idea for a podcast. I think, I think there is a space for more, women podcasters, but especially with what you're doing and having that connection with comedians should be really cool. So we'll be excited to
and I
see
think
that.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot about talking about overcoming like the hardest parts of your life, because that is, a huge part of my story. And I think everyone needs to hear that. Everyone we all go through fucking shit, and it's really important to be able to listen to other people who've been through shit come out on the other side. And I find like a lot of satisfaction in helping people in that way,
Well, you often note that you combine recovery with fitness. So would you like to share a little bit of your story and how fitness played into that?
Yeah, sure. So I've always like loved working out, but I was like a pretty bad alcoholic for a long time. I'm Irish Italian, and I'm from Boston. It's like in my family. It's like, so when I got sober, I was 28. I'll be 39 in April, but I was 28, and I was working at a spin studio because I had always kind of had my foot in the workout world. And I started teaching, and it became like a really good way for me to just get high naturally, because spinning is just so many endorphins. It's just like, so I got really like addicted to spinning, and it was one of the things that really, I think, kept me sober at first. And so, so I started teaching a lot and had sort of like a following there. But fitness really became like the thing that kept me sane, and I think there's a lot of people who've gotten sober who find addictions in other places,
right?
Healthier places. And for me, that's what fitness is. And, listen, like, you're not allowed to drink in my program except for one drink a week, one 2-ounce pour of tequila a week, and that can be really hard for people, but it's really hard to get into the body you want to be in or be in the life you want to be in when you're hungover or drunk all the time. Not that it's just for alcoholics, but just being able to find clarity, you know, is really helpful for people. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it does. And I think it's probably not a coincidence that you have kind of grown and found an audience during the pandemic with so many people who have issues with alcohol and drugs and other things that have been left alone and isolated from everybody else, that you've helped give people something to do and give accountability and help. That's just something that I think has kind of been a lost casualty of the COVID age, of all the people stuck at home or isolated and don't want to be isolated.
Oh yeah. And like, we couldn't go to AA meetings for a long time. And so, you know, I wouldn't say the cure for addiction is community, but like one of the things that really helps keep someone sober is community. That's why AA works, because you're just like in a room with other people who are like, okay, I feel normal. All of you guys can't drink. Okay, cool. Because, you know, if you're just dealing with, you know, drinkers all the time, you're like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? Nothing. I'll just have a drink. Fuck it. You know what I mean? But when you're in a room with other people who also should not be drinking, it makes you feel like, okay, I'm okay. I can do this. And then when you're out in a situation where you feel like you have all those people you can text, you know, or reach out to or call. And so it is sort of the same thing, like in terms of, you know, the fitness programs, like having a group of women who are doing it with you. So when you're like, all I want to do is like, fuck this whole thing. And then you can text your group and they're like, no, we're good. You know, I know, me too. And then you feel supported. And that kind of like calms that, you know, that fucking monster inside, you know? And there's so many things about AA that are just so helpful for everyone, regardless of whether or not you're an addict. It's like the 12 steps are really incredible, like taking responsibility for your own actions and owning up to them, and like trusting that you're not in control of everything. Like there's a lot of things about the program that are really, you know, powerful and helpful, I think, for everyone. Like everyone should do the 12 steps. You know what I mean? I'm
almost surprised that like I haven't heard about something like this before, because they do kind of go hand in hand, right? The AA and the whole program, and then what you're doing, it really seems to me it's like, you know, the good Reese's peanut butter cup that I haven't seen before. So no,
that's incredible. And thank you for sharing your story there. We appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So we know School of Thought is geared towards the ladies, and we're fine with that.
Yeah.
Do you have any fitness advice for guys? Maybe a couple portly podcasters, one of which who may or may not have onset diabetes.
Well, the reason it was for women only and gay men at first was because, you know, we're doing so many thrusting movements online, and I was recording. I was like, you know, you could turn your video off. So I was trying to protect, you know, all the ladies from guys in their mother's basement just like furiously jerking off at you know. But then I would let like a few friends, like male comedian friends, come into classes who like all the girls like knew, you know, like, okay, this is Josh, it's fine, you know. And then it just kind of stuck. But then I've been getting a lot of questions lately, like, when are you gonna do this for men? And I don't know, I guess I mean, yes, I could give you some advice. The number one thing I would say is water. How much water are you drinking? I make my girls drink a gallon of water a day. And the first 32 ounces, which is a liter, I'm trying to see if I have a liter in here somewhere. This is not a liter. The first 32 ounces goes down the hatch before your morning coffee, before food, before anything. So wake up, drink a liter of water, and then have your coffee, and then eat your breakfast. But like water is number one. Most people are so chronically dehydrated. And you know, your colon is just like, it's just like stacked with shit from just years. you know, so many people have so much inflammation in their stomachs. And it's like, what you really want to do is turn your digestive system into like a slip and slide, you know, so you want things going from here to the toilet as quickly as possible. And once you actually start hydrating as much as you should be hydrating, I mean, just doing that alone you'll drop weight just from doing that.
That description is going to help me drop weight. That was very graphic. I appreciate it, though.
I talk about poop a lot all day, so I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
It's a good
Give us
visual.
ideas for future episodes. So this is all good.
Yeah. And then I would say another thing that's really easy to, or not easy, but something that is manageable to add into your life is walking 10,000 steps a day. So before, like, there's sort of like this all or nothing mindset that can get people in trouble. It's the same thing with like, you know, addiction. It's like, well, if I'm not going to just be like a fitness professional, then fuck it. Like, this is just who I am. It's like, there's magic in the middle. Like, you don't have to be perfect. Like, another thing I say all the time, which is from A, is progress, not perfection. Like, you don't have to be fucking perfect. You just have to put a little attention and intention to it. So like something that's easy to control or easy to measure is 10,000 steps a day. And like, you know, if you have a Fitbit or even put your iPhone in your pocket or whatever, that 10,000 steps a day can come out to around an hour and a half if you're doing it in one walk. But if you're just breaking it up and letting it just before you go to bed, make sure that it says at least 10,000 steps every day and you've had a gallon of water. Those two things alone will completely change your life. Like, walking is the most underrated form of exercise ever. You burn fat, you build strength in your legs, you relieve stress. It's not like you don't feel like you're like, oh fuck, I have to, like, you start to really enjoy it because humans are meant to sort of like see things move like this. You know? So it becomes like a really good way to relieve stress, and it's manageable and you can do it, you know. And then people are like, oh, I'll go running, and I'm like, don't run unless it's something that brings you immense joy to your, like, you're one of those psychos that like loves running. Don't run. It's so hard on your body, especially if you're carrying extra weight. It's like, just walk, you know, we're meant to walk, you know.
I agree with you. Scott and I talk about this often offline. During the pandemic, I've been working at home for the last 2 years, and I have an exercise routine of basically a 70-year-old man, but a lot of that is walking. And it's been amazing what it does to be outside in the sunshine just a little bit and to see things move and just to get some extra fresh air. And frankly, with all the water that your students are drinking that early in the morning, they're going to be, whether they like it or not, they're probably going to get 10,000 steps having to move around.
Yeah. So I would say, like, if you're overweight and you have no concept of like eating right and exercise, but you know you want to get started, I would first just focus on the water and the steps, and then like you will gradually start to feel stronger and lighter and ready for like adding in strength training, adding in eating right, maybe even following macros. Like, you'll be able to start stacking things, but just start with like the two most basic ones, because most people are like just not doing anywhere near that. And it's like a rude awakening for a lot of the girls when they start, because they're like, oh my, like at first you can feel like you're drowning yourself, like 32 hours. They're like, is this bitch fucking insane? Like, why would I drink, you know? And then you start to crave it. And the walking too, like it feels like, oh my God, you know, this is just like so much. Okay. But it is a huge difference it makes in your body.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate that. And, you know, you had mentioned not letting guys in because they furiously masturbate. If you need people to kind of slowly and gently do it, we know some people we can put you in touch with.
If you're doing it slowly and gently, then
it takes practice. But anyway, we'll share that maybe later offline.
Okay, Sting.
So thank you again, Stacia. We're getting close to the end, but before we say goodbye to you, we do a show about words and phrases. We thought this would be a great time to look at the origin of thought, Thot. So we have a brief quiz for you. And by the way, this photo is not photoshopped. This was actual photos of Scott.
Amazing.
Well, that's our bodies, but I think you photoshopped Stacia. No, actually, it might be.
Yeah, you guys look great.
So we're going to give you
funny. Actually, I think you guys will appreciate this. My dad writes dictionaries, and he is a lexicographer, and he is a
really
Yeah, he's a PhD in classics and ancient Greek and Latin. And
we should have him on next time.
you honestly should, because he's like he can tell you the etymology of any fucking word. In fact, he writes the etymologies for dictionary.com. But
oh, that's so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So I asked him one day, I was like, do you know what thought means? And he was like, that hottie over there. And I was like, yeah, what else does it mean? And he was like, oh, my dad like wears bow ties to barbecues. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can't believe that I'm his daughter. But anyway, it was
I love that.
Well, that is awesome. No, that's good. It's funny how the tiny world there, that all seems to collide.
Yeah.
All right, Scott. So are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to give you 3 options, and
Okay.
you can see if you can pick what is the origin of thought. And big surprise, it's from hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So just to spoil that. All right, option A.
Okay.
Chief Keef, and I'm going to read the verse that allegedly this might have come from. We be blown like a fan. We let that cool get you. But then bullets hit you hot. Show no love for a thought. So that's option A.
Okay.
Chief Keef. Option B. Katie got bands. The song is We Riding Around and We Drillin'. Fuck the ops. Clap a thought. Bitch, we riding around and we drillin'. And all this will be used against me in court one day for the things I'm saying out loud. So that's option B. Katie got bands. All right, we have one more option for you. Third option. So a rapper by the name of Lil Simm. I have never heard of him before. So let's see. His lyric is Wonton, Bon, Glizzy Gobbler, Jermaine O'Neal. Bitch, you hot to thought. For real.
Well, I guess I'm a little embarrassed that I don't really know, but I'm going to go with B, Katie got bands, because it's a woman and Katie's my sister's name. So we're just going to go with that.
Well, that is a great guess. It's an incorrect guess, but I like where you went with that. The correct answer is Chief Keef.
Yeah.
And his song came out in 2011. Katie Got Bands came out in 2012.
I didn't know if you made Katie Got Bands up. I had never heard of that.
I know. I've never heard of her. Did you make that up? Because I'm like, she also is like using resistance bands. I'm like, this is perfect.
Yeah. She's real. And I definitely didn't make up Lil Simm.
No.
He's certainly real.
By the way, Chief Keef, Stasia, you might be surprised to hear that Chief Keef is often featured on our show. So we do a segment called New Slang, because most of the stuff we do is like, the origin of raining cats and dogs and stuff like that. But we sometimes want to do new stuff. Like Steve dropped a Glizzy Gobbler in there. We've done that one. And they always come from, hip hop slang. Yeah. But Chief Keef is he's like a Shakespeare of his day. I mean, he's been at least 3 or 4. So
it give you something to talk about with your dad.
I know.
You can mention, you got to learn about this Chief Keef guy.
Wait, so, okay, 2011, that was when that word was first used. That's what you said? Okay. Interesting. So, I didn't even know it's been around that long.
Yeah. But you know what? You have someone in your family, maybe challenge your dad. If he, we'll take his word if he beats us.
He's a big Katie Got Bands fan, probably.
Yeah. He's going to hold hard with that.
By the way, she said bow ties to barbecues. I was thinking that'd be a good Billy Joel album or something. That's a good title.
That could be what I do this summer when I wear out all my bandanas. All right. Stacia, thank you for your time and sharing so much with us. Where should our listeners go to find more about you and School of Thought?
I would say go to my Instagram at Stacia Patwell, and just my name spelled out, STASIAPA. Well, you'll put it.
We'll put it out.
Yeah. And then you can go to my website, stasiapatwell.com. It's being updated now. So I'd go to my Instagram first.
Very good.
Awesome.
So, and we will have links for everything in our socials and our show notes. And Stacia, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
This was really fun. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you to our guest, Stacia Patwell. To learn more about Stacia and School of Thought, go to schoolofthought.com or Stacia Patwell on Instagram. We will have links on our show notes and socials for all her sites. And also, thank you very much for listening to Origin of Speakcies. If you enjoy the show, please help us spread the word by liking, commenting, and subscribing on YouTube, leaving a positive review and 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. And for more great content, including 3 silly questions with our guest Stacia, go to patreon.com/Speakcies. That's patreon.com/Speakcies to become a Speakcies supporter. We have levels for every budget. Any level gets you gives you access to all the Speakcies material available, including 3 silly questions. So,
Bob's your uncle.
Watch out for bears and kale is from the devil.
Speakcies.